Well, let's move on to
The other storm.
the other storm. Let's talk about Sleazy Weekend, the Sleazy Weekend that we just witnessed. One of the sleaziest things I've ever seen done in politics. The ambush of Donald Trump, organized ambush by the Clinton campaign. I suspect the entire establishment was in on this deal. This was an assault. This was an ambush, and they've had this stuff waiting for a long time to unload on Donald Trump. It looked pretty bad for him on Saturday.
It was really bad.
They were calling for him to resign, to step aside, to let Governor Pence take over. And they were having a field day jumping on Trump, and they had already buried him.
Right. They were jumping off that ship everywhere.
Oh boy, you're talking about the weasel Republicans?
Yeah. So you had Paul Ryan, you had John McCain. Those are givens. You had Mike Lee. You had several others that just
Not several, a lot of them,
yeah.
Doc. A lot of those little weasels ran away.
Hope you folks remember their names. Remember those names.
And they let Trump dangle in the wind. They deserted him. Of course, they weren't with him to start with.
Right.
They never were his friend. They never were his supporter. They were against him from the get-go of that campaign.
Well, in a lot of ways, this showed again that it was the politicians and the media that hyped this, that broke this, and then attempted to portray the aftermath of this. I mean, the media, if you were to turn the TV on, this was the end of the Trump campaign.
They had the narrative written.
Yes.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
And they had the players and the talking heads already lined up, ready to go.
Jerry Falwell Jr., do you know what he said today?
No.
Jerry Falwell Jr. was interviewed on WABC radio in New York by Rita Cosby. He said that he believes it was the Republican Party establishment who did this to Trump.
Would that shock you?
No.
Not at all.
Well, who was the other person on the tape?
Billy Bush.
Billy Bush. And could he be a member of the Bush family?
Yeah. Nephew of Jeb Bush. So.
And George Bush, which means his grandfather is George Herbert Walker Bush, who did the throat slit
Masonic move.
Yeah.
At the debate.
Yeah, you mean that Bush family?
That very Bush family.
The Skull and Bones Bushes?
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think they've been sitting on this?
Oh, they've known about it for so long. They've known about it since the primaries. It's crazy. It really is.
Well, Jerry Falwell Jr. said, I think it was timed. I think it might have been a conspiracy among establishment Republicans who have known about it for weeks and who tried to time it to do the maximum damage to Donald Trump. And I just think it backfired on them. And he said, but I think some of the establishment folks who reluctantly endorsed him had this planned all along as a way to slither out of the endorsement. And it's backfired. And I'm glad to see it. He said it wasn't a coincidence that it came out right before Trump was supposed to appear with Paul Ryan at a rally and conveniently gave Paul Ryan a way to disinvite Donald Trump.
And that was going to be their first appearance together, by the way. That was going to be the first time they were going to be together.
But here again, we got to see truth in action here. How many people showed up to that Paul Ryan speech expecting to see Donald Trump, and then as Paul Ryan...
they booed Paul Ryan.
Yes.
Shame on you, they said. Shame on you. Shame.
It was a Wisconsin political, I don't know what they call it, fall fest, something for political candidates.
Cheese fry?
And all the state Republican leaders were there, but they were booed. People were yelling, like you said, shame on you.
Yeah.
Now today, Fox News reported Donald Trump clashed with House Speaker Paul Ryan on Monday after the top congressional Republican told rank-and-file lawmakers he will not campaign with the party's presidential nominee or defend him. and even suggested he's preparing for a Hillary Clinton presidency. Well, he was preparing for that
That's
for
right.
the last 2 years.
That's right.
The whole game plan's
Wow.
messed up.
Well, Pastor, not only has this whole movement called out all these wishy-washy GOP yellowbacks, but there's a lot of these middle-of-the-road evangelicals over the weekend that said, I'm done with Donald Trump. I'm done with it. I'm finished with it. And but then there were a select few that said, I'm standing with it. Franklin Graham came out, saying, he said some stupid things 11 years ago, but I believe God is using this man. This is Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son, saying this. And there are other people in the Christian community, too, that were being outspoken about what God is doing in Donald Trump's life.
I agree. And Susan and I had this conversation over the weekend, and I said, look, I believe the Lord is breaking him down in public.
Yeah.
He's crushing him. He's humiliating him. But it's the Lord doing it not to destroy him, but to redeem him, to draw Trump closer. Listen, the Lord cares more about Donald Trump's soul than he does the election.
He does. Yeah, that's true.
He cares more about Hillary Clinton's soul than the election.
Yes.
And I believe he's working in Donald Trump's life. Donald Trump today is not the same man he was a year and a half ago. He's not the same man he was at the beginning of this year. Yeah, I've seen a softening in him.
A softening, but also a fierceness, too, about him that has
Yes.
grown as well. Passion that has grown. It seemed like a year ago some things were flippant with him, but now it's like, this is really serious business now. This really is. The country's on the line here.
And that's the same thing I saw. You go back to 2012, some of the speeches he gave in Las Vegas on behalf of Mitt Romney. He was a very vulgar person in 2012. And during that speech, multiple curse words, it's just the way he spoke. You can see the change.
Yes.
It is evident.
Well, a year ago, there was a group of Christian leaders that met with him and laid hands on him and prayed. And the photograph of Trump, he was standing there with his eyes open, like he was thinking, oh, give me a break. I want out of here. I don't know what these people are doing. I want to go. But then last month we saw him in Detroit.
He was a different guy.
They put the prayer shawl on him and they prophesied over him. And he quoted scripture. And he was a different man. God is working in this man's life. And I think people need to be, especially the super pious, ultra religious folks, I think they need to be very, very careful about condemning and judging this man. I believe God's hand is on Donald Trump. I am convinced he will win the election. I believe God's going to use him to slay a lot of the wicked leaders that are, when I say slay, I don't mean physically, I'm talking spiritually, to make war against many of the corrupt, wicked people that are in this country. What we saw over the weekend is a prime example of why nobody has ever mounted a serious challenge to the regime.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if you seriously challenge the regime will come down on you like an anvil on your head. They will crush you. They will use all of their might, power, influence, networking to find any dirt on your life, to smear you, to lie about you. Trump is the only person right now who has the stamina and the strength to take the beating. This man has become the Rocky Balboa of American politics.
That's a great analogy there.
I mean, he is bloodied, he is beaten, but he just keeps getting back up on his feet and swinging again. And they are terrified because there's this bloodied pulp of a man who continues to swing at them. And that's what he's doing. And he's going to do it all the way to the election, and he's going to win. Mark my words, Donald Trump is going to win this election. I don't care who proclaims Hillary Clinton the winner. That woman is destined for defeat. Donald Trump will win this election, and God's people are going to have a time to reclaim territory in this country, to reclaim spiritual territory. Now, Doc, you mentioned that others are talking about the assault that was on Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And Susan shared with me on Saturday, this was, the day before the debate, she shared with me a video that somebody had posted on Facebook, and I had never heard of this gentleman. His name is Lance Wallnau.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, I did some research, and he's a very successful business trainer, consultant,
right?
Strong, devout Christian. I talked to my friend Aaron Brickman. He goes, "No, Lance. I've been listening to Lance Wallnau's stuff for years. This guy's fantastic, Rick." And so I listened to what Lance Wallnau had to say on Saturday, and he just recorded a video. He was in Jerusalem, and he just spoke from his heart about the scandal, the so-called a video scandal that was raging all over the world on Saturday. And this is what Lance Wallnau had to say. I believe he had it absolutely right.
Hello, my friends. Greetings from Jerusalem. I am right here. We're today in this beautiful setting of Jerusalem. Not far from my hotel, there was a terrorist incident with 5 people shot, 2 killed. I am this day working with 30 diplomats at what I believe an undisclosed location. We're discussing the kingdom of God and the various nations that are here, first ladies and diplomats and members of the House of Lords and stuff. And you would be excited to know how the kingdom is beginning to really take shape in the minds of Christians. We recognize that culture is deteriorating and collapsing all around us. Isn't this interesting what's happening with Donald Trump, by the way? Well, I'm here. The surfacing of this obnoxious videotape of his from 2004, 2005. I want to ask you a question. Isn't it typical of religious people to read something that was written or said 10 years ago and miss God? This isn't God exposing something. This is the devil strategically exposing information in order to destroy a candidate. And who is dispensing this? The most phenomenal thing in the world is it's the very people that are some of the most corrupt politicians we've ever had in high office. But that's not the point. The point is, God is actually humbling Donald Trump. That should make you think. I think God is going to do something very unusual. Because when God humbles someone, obviously it's so that the grace of God can perform an operation in us that produces the character of Christ. By humbling him, he is more qualified as a candidate than anyone else. I'm always amazed at how Christians kill their leaders. Don't you understand that after Peter fell, he was far more useful as a spokesman on the day of Pentecost? Donald Trump is in a process in this whole campaign. I've watched the anointing go to work in him. I've watched him have to deal with things. I watched him have to grow and change. And now for the first time, apologizing, repenting, having to taste the bitterness of embarrassment and not being able to push back or punch his way back. He's on the potter's way. And so all of those Condoleezza Rice and righteous Christians and puritanical, Bush lovers, basically, in her case, wake up and get out of your religious spirit. Somebody gave me a prophecy today from the States that there was spirits being dispatched to put blindfolds on the minds of Christians. We are so easy to manipulate. We're like Bozo the Clown sometimes. Easy to manipulate. What we have to do is we have to realize, I said that Trump went through a metamorphosis. I had the year wrong. It was 2004, 2005, I said, began the new decade. When he started growing up, you won't find a lot. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of stuff coming back for the last 5, 6, 7 years, because the man's been under a process of growing up for the office of what he's called to do. Now, here's my final thought on this. I wrote a Facebook post, and I want you to read it today. It's from Gordon Pennington. And he lays it out. pretty ruthlessly. He says, look, it appears we have two guns pointed at our heads. One is locked and loaded, and the other may represent a spin at Russian roulette. He's talking about Hillary and Trump. But the mathematical odds are clearly better. But there's more. Just follow along for 2 minutes here and consider a different angle with a biblical precedent. Donald Joseph Trump appears to be a loathsome, sexist, crude, loudmouth, narcissistic bully with a checkered and questionable past. Yet he's not a criminal. And even a full roster of his alleged wrongdoings and misdeeds fails to compare to the Clinton legacy. The harsh, realpolitik implications of what's ahead will require tough decisions, especially to retain any hope of constructionist meddling and legislating from the bench and a constitutional quorum of the Supreme Court, meaning that there's going to be a rewriting of court laws that are going to affect the nature of your freedom as a Christian. Hillary Rodham Clinton has a 30-year track record of compromise, corruption, collusion, and contempt for law and truth, and it comes with the incomparable baggage of a former president for a husband who brought unprecedented shame to the Oval Office of the White House under impeachment proceedings, and a track record of equally contemptuous behavior, not the least of which is known behavior as a sexual predator who, in facing multiple charges, was also accused of rape and settled out of court while he was disbarred from practicing law, even as he and his wife hustled hundreds of millions of dollars into their charitable foundation while serving their personal interests through a sophisticated global syndicate of influence for sale, and that's just the starter. Now the voting public is being faced with the bullying, manipulating pressure of media mind control to judge a man who is being humbled for inappropriate carnal things. But yet he's repenting and changing and owning it. Have you seen any repentance and change and ownership at all in the Clinton dynasty? Has there been a moment of embarrassment and ownership and acknowledgement? None. Which is why I say this: God can do more with Samson than he can do with Jezebel. God can do more with a carnal prophet. God could anoint the jawbone of an ass and slay his enemies better than he can anoint Jezebel to advance his prophetic agenda. God never used Jezebel, but he did use Samson. And I think Donald Trump is like a Samson, and I think the jawbone of the ass is an appropriate word for what he's experiencing right now. And I think you better be careful how you touch the anointed vessel that God has sent, because if America rejects the vessel that God sent for deliverance, then instead of being a restoring of the walls and a forward movement for the body of Christ, we're going to end up in a rear guard action, and it's not going to be as pleasant. It's not going to be as good. It's going to be harder. And I pray that the American Christian doesn't fall prey to the blindfolds of Lucifer through the media mind control and personal attack on Trump. May God anoint him with the ability to credibly acknowledge his fault, such that he is able to deal with any further exposures that come out, any others that come out over the next 2 weeks. May there be a line between the man he was and the man he is, and may we all recognize that America is going to have to draw the same flippant line, because we all are in the same boat with Peter, who denied Christ, or Trump, who's got secret stuff that's coming out. The difference between Trump and Clinton: Trump's carnal. The other force, the progressive force, my friends, is demonic. There's no repentance coming on the other side. There is repentance with Trump. And you're going to see it. You're watching it right now because the man's being humbled. Well, that's my controversial view for the day from Jerusalem, where they're shooting on the streets, but they've evidently shot the terrorists. And may God, in his grace, save America. Read that article by Gordon Pennington. You'll love it. And I think I'll leave this online for 48 hours before I take it off. These kinds of messages tend to get around the block. So share it liberally. Share it. Because what I'm saying, I believe, is the burden of the Lord. Bye-bye.
Again, that's Lance Wadaw. He's a business consultant, and those were his comments about the scandal that broke out on Saturday, a hit job, an ambush on Donald Trump. And as Jerry Falwell Jr. said today, quite possibly it wasn't done by Hillary Clinton's campaign. It was done by the Republican establishment working with Hillary Clinton. You know, Doc, there are three scriptures that come to mind And this is for everybody, including the left, the political lefties. This is for the establishment. This is for the Republican leaders. This is for the super duper religious folks that are holding their nose and saying, I can't vote for Trump. This is for all of us, you and me. This is for everybody, because we're all mortal men and women. These three scriptures apply to every human being. Luke 12, verses 1 through 3. In the meantime, when an innumerable multitude of people had gathered together, so that they trampled one another, he began to say to his disciples, first of all, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms will be proclaimed on the housetops. Well, guess what? That includes Anderson Cooper.
Right.
And that includes Rachel Maddow. That includes Chris Matthews. And all of the other news media gurus. That includes all the self-righteous religious folks.
Yes.
Who are tearing at their garments and pouring ashes on their head and going, woe is me, you know. If this is for everybody, every single human, whatever, because there's a judgment day coming. You're going to stand before God, and whatever was spoken in dark will be heard in light. And then in Matthew 12, verses 33, 37, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree bad and its fruit bad, for a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil fruits. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned.
Right.
Again, that's for every human being. That's for Ban Ki-moon at the UN. That's for George Soros. That is for Alan Greenspan. That is for every human being, great and small, famous and unknown, every human being. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And then Revelation 20, verse 11 through 15. And then I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it, and from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. The sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death, and anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. And so the television networks are full of hypocrites. They're hypocrites. Self-righteous hypocrites condemning Donald Trump. And yet they themselves, if we could hear a recording of their own words, would be shocked and horrified by what they say in private. You know, Doc, somebody should investigate news media elite.
Oh, you can't do that.
Why not?
Oh, they're off limits. You can't investigate the media, can you?
Somebody should do a private investigation of the top names in the news media and bring forth shocking revelations about their private lives.
Yeah, hold them to the same standard that they're holding everybody else to.
Wouldn't that be a good nightly television show?
That would. So
the true lives of the news media elite. There was a lot of talk, and that's all it was. Rumors, created by the same people, the people that set up the ambush. Then they started the rumors. Mike Pence is going to drop out.
Yeah, I saw one report that said four different sources were confirming that Mike Pence was going to drop out of the
But
race.
they didn't name the sources.
No, they didn't.
Well, Mike Pence was on Fox and Friends this morning. This is what he said.
Governor, if I could start with the headlines in the Daily Mail and your local newspaper in Indianapolis, it said Mike Pence is waiting for the outcome of the second presidential debate to decide if he'll dump Trump or not. Was that true? Because you were silent during the day through social media and other appearances that could have been done.
Well, that was absolutely false. And I think it's just like what Kellyanne just said. There's, these rumors just furl around presidential campaigns. This is my first time I've ever been at this level, but it really is remarkable. I think the real story this morning is that Donald Trump stepped up and won a debate last night that seemed to be against all odds. He stepped up, he showed humility, he showed strength, he expressed genuine contrition for the words that he had used on the video that became public, and then he moved directly into the choice that the American people are facing, and it is such a dramatic choice. And I thought before the end of that 90 minutes, the American people could see the opportunity that we really have to change the direction of this country. And in Donald Trump, you'll have a stronger America at home and abroad, a more prosperous America. You'll bring real change to Washington, D.C. You'll have a president who will uphold our Constitution in appointments to the Supreme Court. And in Hillary Clinton, you just heard more of the same failed policies that have weakened America's place in the world, stifled our economy, and continued to drive liberal policies in our judiciary. And I'm just proud of the job he did, proud of my running mate, and looking forward to being on the campaign trail today in North Carolina.
She's laughing about getting this pedophile off the hook from going to prison for raping this 12-year-old girl. Now, this case took place many, many years ago when Hillary Clinton was a young a young lawyer for when she was just a young lawyer.
I think you had it right.
And, like all good communist lawyers, they defend pedophiles, rapists, just, lowlifes. And so this is a woman who said, what does it matter about 4 people dying in Benghazi? What does it matter? This is Hillary Clinton. This is who this woman is. Did anybody notice her? Is anybody freaked out by her eyes? Did anybody last night look at those shark eyes?
I was transfixed by her fake smile. So I couldn't
Look
get to
at
the
her eyes. They're dead. They're just lifeless, black holes. Hillary Clinton is a criminal.
Well, Donald came out swinging last night.
He sure did. He was totally different than he was in the first debate. I was in the first debate. I told it the way I saw. I said he lost that debate. He lost the first debate. Hillary Clinton won the first debate, hands down. Trump won the second debate, hands down. Without a doubt, Donald Trump won that debate last night. He dominated the debate. Even and the media was shocked today. They were calling him a stalker because he walked around on the stage and got into Hillary's space. But, they couldn't find a photograph that he was not in.
Very smart.
Yep, she kind of started that as well. It was after, on CBS last night after the debate, the media was interviewing her inside of the bus. And basically, you could see how it started. It was a conversation where the media was already setting it up to say, was he stalking you or something? And I don't like to assume I wasn't there. However, when the soundbite came through, finally, the sound, she was saying, yes, he was like on top of me. So that's probably where the stalking
Yes,
came out.
he's a bully. He bullied her on the debate stage. I'm curious, what did you think was the best line of last night's debate?
When he said to her she would be in jail. When she said, "Oh, we're so thankful that he is not in a position of power," or something. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He
Right.
didn't have anything to do with the law.
Right, and he said, "It's right because you would be in jail." But I liked a lot of sound bites though, Pastor. But that comes right to mind.
Oh, and it went viral worldwide instantly. I was checking the newspapers around the world as I was listening to the debate, and that line hit the front page of newspapers all over the world within seconds.
Yeah.
Well, it's something their campaign has never been able to shake off. The people have already voted. She's a criminal in their eyes.
I mean, tens of millions of people want her in prison. This is the classic line from last night's debate. Donald Trump saying she ought to be in jail.
Because everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? In the first debate,
the audience needs to calm down here.
I told people that it would be impossible to be fact-checking Donald all the time. I'd never get to talk about anything I want to do and how we're going to really make lives better for people. So once again, go to HillaryClinton.com. We have literally Trump. You can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact-checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact-checking because, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
That's right. You're just wasting time.
Oh, Anderson Cooper, the debate god. You little peons, sit down and be quiet. I am Anderson Cooper. I am the great Oz, and I rule the debate, and you are not allowed to express your opinions, for I, the great Oz, Anderson Cooper, have declared that you have no voice. When are the people going to tell these freaks at CNN and MSNBC that they're just jerks, that we don't care about them, that we're fed up with them, that we're
finding our own news. Thank you very much.
That's right. That's right. They're the court jesters of the New World Order. That's really what they are.
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper, Andrea Mitchell, all of them, court jesters of the New World Order.
When you understand that the purpose of the news divisions of these organizations is to sell soap,
and propaganda.
That's right. And it's not to inform people. It's not to educate people. It's not to make people feel better. It's to sell soap and propaganda. When you realize that, it changes everything.
That's right. Now, Donald Trump also last night called for a special prosecutor. I'm glad he finally got around to making this call.
This was my favorite line.
When you talk about apology, I think the one that you should really be apologizing for, and the thing that you should be apologizing for, are the 33,000 emails that you deleted and that you acid washed. And then the 2 boxes of emails and other things last week that were taken from an office and are now missing. And I'll tell you what, I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm going to say it. And I hate to say it, but if I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it. And we're going to have a special prosecutor. When I speak, I go out and speak. The people of this country are furious. In my opinion, the people that have been long-term workers at the FBI are furious. There has never been anything like this, where emails and you get a subpoena, and after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails. And then you acid wash them, or bleach them, as you would say, a very expensive process. So we're going to get a special prosecutor, and we're going to look into it, because you know what? People have been, their lives have been destroyed for doing 1/5 of what you've done. And it's a disgrace. And honestly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
And then one of the voters that was on stage asked a question regarding the WikiLeaks disclosure, because all these emails came out in which Hillary Clinton was quoted as favoring no borders in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
From the North Pole to the South Pole, there would be no borders.
Right. And the question was framed in such a way where they were responding to Hillary's comment in that you can have your political views and your personal views.
Well, she said you could a politician could have a public position, and a private position. In other words, I can lie to you.
Right.
I can tell the voters this is what I believe, but in private, I'll tell the big money guys this is what I'm going to do. And she set herself up to be slammed by Donald Trump. This is what it sounded like last night.
This question involves WikiLeaks' release of purported excerpts of Secretary Clinton's paid speeches, which she has refused to release, and one line in particular in which you, Secretary Clinton, purportedly say you need both a public and private position on certain issues. So, 2 from Virginia asks, is it okay for politicians to be two-faced? Is it acceptable for a politician to have a private stance on issues? Secretary Clinton, well, your 2 minutes.
Right. As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln. It was a master class watching President Lincoln get the Congress to approve the 13th Amendment. It was principled and it was strategic. And I was making the point that it is hard sometimes to get the Congress to do what you want to do, and you have to keep working at it. And yes, President Lincoln was trying to convince some people. He used some arguments. Convincing other people, he used other arguments. That was a great, I thought, a great display of presidential leadership. But, you know, let's talk about what's really going on here, Martha, because our intelligence community just came out and said in the last few days that the Kremlin, meaning Putin and the Russian government, are directing the attacks, the hacking on American accounts to influence our election. And WikiLeaks is part of that, as are other sites where the Russians hack information. We don't even know if it's accurate information, and then they put it out. We have never in the history of our country been in a situation where an adversary, a foreign power, is working so hard to influence the outcome of the election. And believe me, they're not doing it to get me elected.
So that's Hillary invoking the ghost of Abraham Lincoln in her defense of her lies. It's Abraham Lincoln's second worst night of life.
Do we have Trump's response to that one? We don't have that one. Oh, that was the great one. Trump, he came back and he says, I don't believe what I just heard. You just brought in Abraham Lincoln to explain your lies? Honest Abe, he goes, Honest Abe didn't lie. Hillary, you're a liar. That was a classic line last night, and she set herself up for that one. She should have known better, to quote, a serial liar should never quote Abraham Lincoln. Just think about it. You're setting yourself up to be slapped down when you do something like that. Also, one of the news networks, CNN, they had a hot mic moment.
Right.
They had a focus group. Many of the networks have a focus group where they get voters together and they watch the debate. And then after the debate, they ask the voters how they, what statements impressed them the most, which statements turned them away from a candidate and so forth. Well, the CNN focus group, as there was a hot mic moment when the CNN news host was overheard coaching a voter on what to say when they came back on the air. Listen to this.
They have to listen.
That America already is great, but we are great because we are good.
America's great. All right, so I want to ask you, what was it about Hillary Clinton's argument that resonated with you following Donald Trump's defense of the video?
She stated that America is already great, and I tend to agree with that. Though we are slow in progressing in a number of areas, we are progressing.
Did you hear that?
Right. So just so folks can understand what's happening there, they played a clip of the debate, and then as it transitioned back to the focus group, you actually heard the moderator there in the focus group feed a line to the person there in the room.
Yeah, we're going to play it again, just that portion. You need to hear the CNN moderator whispering to the voter to say, "Make America great."
America's great. America's great.
So she's saying, say that America is great. Not that we have to make America great, but Hillary says America is great.
Right.
And that's the Hillary line. So CNN got caught red-handed coaching a voter in what to say on television. And then another one, MSNBC, Chuck Todd was talking to Andrea Mitchell, and Andrea Mitchell is married to Alan Greenspan.
Right.
What a team. And he was livid. He was outraged that Donald Trump brought those 4 women who had been attacked by the Clintons in one way or the other sexually. And he was outraged that Donald Trump humiliated the former president of the United States. This is Chuck Todd on MSNBC.
Chuck, that raised a lot of eyebrows, not least because it was redolent of, what happens in Ukraine or Iraq or banana republics, where if you win an election, you lock up your opponent.
Right. Only in a third world country, and only in the sort of the mind of some sort of movie writer of a third world democracy or dictatorship would you have a candidate publicly humiliate a former occupant of that office by parading all of these other people around as well. It was sort of, it is and will remain now the single most surreal presidential debate in American history.
How dare he humiliate Bill Clinton by reminding the world that Bill Clinton is accused of rape and molestation and that he was impeached for lying about a sexual act in the White House.
That's right. And did you hear Andrew Mitchell's comment at the beginning saying, well, this isn't, we don't live in some third world banana republic where we lock up our opponents and everything, directly referring to Donald Trump's, threat to have a special prosecutor. Well, if you've committed the crime, you need to do the time, I would think, right?
You better believe it. I think Donald Trump needs to call for FBI Director Comey to resign. I think he should say he's going to investigate Comey and Loretta Lynch. They need to be investigated, both of them. The Attorney General and the FBI Director need to be investigated for covering up massive criminal behavior.
Which happens in a banana republic.
That's right. There's no point in even having an FBI and an Attorney General if they're going to cover up the crimes of the elite. And they ought to be investigated. Frank Luntz was on Fox News. He had a focus group, and he was shocked by the results of his focus group. Listen to Frank Luntz.
This is the first time of the 3 debates that there has been any genuine movement. And I have to acknowledge something here. I thought that it was all over for Donald Trump. And when these people walked in here, I was pretty sure of it. Based on their response, and I hope to bring some more of it to you later on in the show, I have to change my mind. I actually think that tonight was so significant that he is back in this race.
You should have seen Megyn Kelly's face when Luntz said that to her. I mean, her eyeballs rolled around in her head. Megyn Kelly despises Donald Trump. He put her down last year in the first debate. She verbally assaulted him. The media does this all the time. The media verbally molests people. The media verbally assaults people, and they think that they're entitled to their attacks on people. And so she attacked him. She set him up in the first debate, and he knocked her down verbally, and she's never gotten over it. And she's been on a warpath for a year and a half to get even with Trump. And last night after the debate, she flapped her lips for at least an hour and a half about the the locker room talk. I mean, the debate was over for an hour and a half. Megyn Kelly was still on the locker room video. I give it a break, Kelly. I mean, get off his back. It's so obvious that she hates Donald Trump.
Well, and it was the press in general. The press and the politicians thought this was going to be a KO punch to his campaign. They haven't got the memo. They don't understand that they are making themselves irrelevant by pushing these stories.
That's exactly right. Edward hit it right on the head there.
Yes.
Yeah, keep it up. Keep it up. They're all showing themselves for what they are.
And I bet the rallies are going to get even bigger, louder, stronger.
And folks, after this election, after Trump wins, I'm telling you, the fight has just started. They're not going to let up. They are going to attack. They're going to organize. They're going to regroup. And they're going to solidify to come at the Trump administration, because the Trump administration is a direct challenge to the New World Order.
And you hit it right on the head. This nationalistic movement is going to go from electing Trump to pushing ballot initiatives, recalls. I mean, everybody, all these GOP rhinos that have exposed themselves or are yet to expose themselves, they're going to feel the brunt force of this movement.
I think President Trump will call in the Republican House leaders and tell them, I want a new speaker. I cannot work with Paul Ryan. Get me a new speaker. I think he'll go to the Senate Republicans and say, I don't want Mitch McConnell. Get me a new Senate president. And the House Republicans and the House Senators are going to have to make a decision. Who do they fear most? Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell?
Or their constituents back home.
Their constituents back home, or a very angry Donald Trump. Because they will know Trump will deliver on whatever threats he makes. And they're going to have to deal with a very angry President Trump who's going to tell them, I know what you did to me in that campaign. I know who my friends are, and I know who my enemies are. And I'm going to write this scorecard. And I think they're going to dump Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell.
Which they should.
Yes, they should have done a long time ago. But I really do. I think they will dump them. I think Paul Ryan has signed his political death notice. He's done. He's finished. That man is despised among the rank and file Republicans. If he thinks he's going to be president someday, he is smoking dope. That man will never be the president of the United States. There are people who are determined to make sure Paul Ryan never gets out of Wisconsin.
Oh, and I was going to say, it's not the politicians. It's the people.
Yes.
His constituencies. Let's say maybe 60 to 70% of the people that voted him in are now hardcore Trump fans and are nationalists.
That's right. And so after this election, folks, we've got to keep going. And True News is going to need you more than ever, because the battle is with the news media. The battle is with the news media. The reason when I say we, I'm talking about the conservatives, the Christians, the pro-life groups, the Tea Party, the gun rights groups, the land rights groups, whatever organization, whatever group you want to talk about. The reason we consistently get knocked down is because you got to look at the news media. If in a war, the news media, we're trying to capture a hill, a mountain, and there's a machine gun nest on the hill. It's the news media. Right. And whoever goes charging up that hill. Okay, so, in one battle, it's the Second Amendment rights people, and they're charging up the hill, and the machine gun nest opens up fire. And then the pro-life group tries to go up the hill. The machine gun nest opens fire. And then the prayer in schools group try to get up the hill. The machine gun nest opens fire. For heaven's sakes, take the machine gun nest out.
Yes.
If you want to take the hill, take the machine gun nest out. It's the news media.
That's who we're really fighting.
We're fighting the news media. Folks, we need support at True News. We're here battling every single day. And 98% of you that listen to this program sit there as a spectator and you don't help us. 98% of this audience doesn't help us. Get up off you're behind and do something. This is life and death. This is a battle for survival. Listen, I want to close the program with one more soundbite from last night's debate. And we're going to take Hillary Clinton's opening remarks and put it together with her closing remarks. Because, well, once you hear both of them, you'll understand why they fit together. Listen to this.
Our first question comes from Patrice Brock. Patrice?
Thank you and good evening. The last presidential debate could have been rated as MA, mature audiences, per TV parental guidelines. Knowing that educators assign viewing the presidential debates as students' homework, do you feel you're modeling appropriate and positive behavior for today's youth?
Well, like everyone else, I've spent a lot of time thinking over the last 48 hours about what we heard and saw. You know, with prior Republican nominees for president, I disagreed with them on politics, policies, principles, but I never questioned their fitness to serve. Donald Trump is different. I said starting back in June that he was not fit to be president and commander-in-chief. And many Republicans and independents have said the same thing. What we all saw and heard on Friday was Donald talking about women, what he thinks about women, what he does to women, and he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is, because we've seen this throughout the campaign. We have seen him insult women. We've seen him rate women on their appearance, ranking them from 1 to 10. We've seen him embarrass women on TV and on Twitter. We saw him after the first debate spend nearly a week denigrating a former Miss Universe in the harshest, most personal terms. So, yes, this is who Donald Trump is. But it's not only women, and it's not only this video that raises questions about his fitness to be our president, because he has also targeted immigrants, African Americans, Latinos, people with disabilities, POWs, Muslims, and so many others. So this is who Donald Trump is. And the question for us, the question our country must answer, is that this is not who we are. That's why, to go back to your question, I want to send a message, we all should, to every boy and girl, and indeed to the entire world, that America already is great, but we are great because we are good. And we will respect one another, and we will work with one another, and we will celebrate our diversity. These are very important values to me, because this is the America that I know and love. And I can pledge to you tonight that this is the America that I will serve if I'm so fortunate enough to become your president.
My question to both of you is, regardless of the current rhetoric, would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
Mr. Trump, would you like to go first?
Well, I certainly will, because I think that's a very fair and important question. Look, I respect his children. His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald. I don't agree with nearly anything else he says or does, but I do respect that.
All right, so now which is it, Pastor Rick? He's either a bad role model or a great father. Which is it?
How do you raise incredible children? There's only one way to raise incredible children. I mean, you have to teach values, discipline. You have to instill in them the right things. So she said he raised incredible children.
Right.
So is he the evil monster she said he is, or is he the wonderful father, as she said he is?